First of all, I'm gonna begin my show this week by dedicating it to the memory of my cousin, Misha Osford. Last week, she tragically died in a car bus accident, and our thoughts and our prayers are with the entire Osford family, her 2 kids, at this time. Misha, rest in peace. And secondly, I ask anybody who watches my show and anybody out there in Finger Lakes land to help Mr. and Mrs. Don G. Don G was one of the great teachers here for the Seneca Falls School District, and all these years later, I still think the world of him and his family, especially Diana, who right now is going through a tough time herself with her surgeries and her rehab from a fall. But this past weekend, the G's house burnt to the ground, and they need help. But right now, Lindsay G has started a fundraiser on GoFundMe.com. So go there and pledge anything you can to help Mr. G and his family, because he deserves the help. He is a great man, and this whole community stands with him in this time of need. So please, help Mr. G and his family. And now I'm going to get to what I'm going to rant about this week. First of all, guess what? Our AD is out at Syracuse. That's right. Daryl Gross has been reassigned within the university. He's no longer the athletic director. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? A little over 10 years ago, when he came to Syracuse from USC to become the athletic director here, he pledged to turn Syracuse into Southern Cal East, that he was going to make Syracuse football as fearsome as the Trojans were. Well, look at what's happened in 10 years. What has Syracuse football done? Oh, he did get a little better there during the reign of Doug Marrone. But guess what? We recanted. Even though injuries had a big part to do with it last year, we aren't Southern Cal East. And you know, he didn't handle this whole thing with the Syracuse basketball, very well too. I think Daryl Gross, good riddance. You came up here with a whole lot of bluster in that, and guess what? It was a lot of false promises. So you know what? Yeah, you tried, but you didn't get results. Like they say in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, don't start what you can't finish. And now I turn from Daryl Gross to Boeheim with his press conference. Yeah, he did take a lot of responsibility for what happened, but the big announcement was that in 3 years he will be retiring as the coach, and also his defiant tone during the speech. You know what? Kudos to Boeheim, because like Dick Vitale said, Boeheim wasn't all responsible for what happened. He put his trust in others, and those others betrayed Boeheim. Kudos to Boeheim for going ahead to appeal. And you know what? I hope the university decides to sue the NCAA, because the NCAA thinks they're all powerful. They expect everybody to bow down. All hail the great NCAA organization. Well, you know what? All hang the good old NCAA organization. You know what? There seems to be some ethics reform that ought to be convened to look into the NCAA's practices, because they're too powerful. They need a little bit of motivation, and they need some change, if you know what I mean. Let's hope Boeheim can help win this appeal, get some of those god-awful sanctions that have been thrown against him overturned, especially restoring all those wins, because before he retires in 3 years, I hope to see him top the 1,000 win club. Hell, I hoped it would have come in the next year or two before these sanctions took hold. Let's go. I hope things change, and you know what, Boeheim? Loved the speech. Well, I'm going to what that Syracuse is out of this year, and what has been quite a thing that so far, this year's NCAA Tournament. Well, you know what? There's not one real Cinderella that's still alive, with the exception of UCLA, thanks to Steve Alford's son, who's helped the Bruins, who are an 11th seed, reach the Sweet 16. But of course, you see, two number 2 seeds, Virginia and Kansas, have already been knocked out, and one number 1 seed, Villanova, has already been knocked out. But the number 1 seed I hoped would have been knocked out, unfortunately, is still there. That's right, John Calapuke and his Wildcats are still undefeated. Well, you know, they're in the Sweet 16, and anything can happen in the Sweet 16 on the way to the Final Four. But what about that thing that has gone viral? The Villanova band player, the piccolo player, crying right there when her Wildcats lost to North Carolina State. You know, everybody should show unabashed emotion like that young girl. Well, it's gone viral. There's even been memes thrown about it. But hey, you gotta admire a girl that shows a lot of school spirit, even though she's playing a little dinky flute. Where's the Pied Piper of Hamlin when you need him? And also to the Georgia State coach for showing unabashed emotion and also getting hurt while doing it. Hell, he tore his Achilles tendon when his team won their conference tournament, and also right when his team made the winning basket in their upset first-round victory. Hey, he was sitting on a stool because of that Achilles injury. But then you saw what happened. He fall down. And of course, when Georgia State got eliminated in the next game, you saw the unabashed emotion he showed during his press conference, especially because his son is a member of the team. And also, Kevin Ware's a member of Georgia State. That's where he went after what happened to him at Louisville. Everybody remembers that gruesome injury he suffered a couple of years ago with his leg. Kudos to Kevin Ware and kudos to Georgia State. It was a nice run, but it's about to become the Sweet 16. And as you know, anything can happen. But please, don't fall down again. And I'm going to close with a couple little rants about what's happening with politics and what's happening with courts. Seems as though Ted Cruz has become the first person to throw his hat into the ring for the 2016 presidential election. He's a staunch conservative, a Republican, and also a member of the Tea Party. And apparently the filibuster he had on Obamacare riled up people on both sides of the aisle. For 21 straight hours, he talked about Obamacare. Heck, I didn't know anybody could talk for 21 straight hours. With the exception of a few talk show hosts here and there, with the exception of maybe a few radio hosts, especially there in Rochester. But hell, 21 straight hours almost without a break, even quoting Dr. Seuss. Heck, Kimberly and Beck couldn't talk that long, if you know what I mean. But don't be like Jimmy Stewart, Mr. Cruz, if you decide to talk like that if you become the president. Because you know what? We don't want anybody collapsing while doing a filibuster like Mr. Stewart did in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. But you know, I kind of like somebody who's got staunchly conservative views. Because somebody needs to uphold the ideals the Constitution has. And people have seemed to have forgotten what the Constitution is all about, if you know what I mean. Especially here in New York State. Hell, maybe, Cruz, you can talk to Mr. Cuomo. Tell him to get rid of the SAFE Act and get rid of Common Core. And last but not least, how about that Mr. Durst there? Don't you know it's not wise to keep talking, especially when you think it's over and the camera's still going? Heck, we wouldn't have known that you actually are a murderer. Sometimes it's just best if you talk a little bit. I almost want to say keep your mouth shut, but hell, nobody gets away with murder, Mr. Durst. I'm Ken Haas, and that's my rant this week.